Welcome to another episode of A Question of Meaning with Arthur and Katie.
Glad you're tuned in.
Yeah. And here we go for another hour of talking. As you see, once again, we have our guitars laid down. We were thinking of actually doing an all-guitar show, maybe here sometime in the future. But today, we thought we'd talk about death. We take that as our topic of conversation. We've been addressing a lot of different subjects, the meaning of different subjects, and we've talked about doing death, and we keep saying, well, maybe that'll be our first location shot. You know, we'll go somewhere picturesque like beautiful Riverside Cemetery. But so we kept putting off death, and we thought, well, maybe we should stop putting it off, so to speak. And although that seems to be what we all do, is try to put off death by ignoring its existence. So maybe that's what we'll stop doing for a change.
Worked for me a lot.
Has it?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
You don't want to dwell on the subject too much. Of course, we have a real philosophical spin on the subject and what death is.
Really?
Yeah, what a surprise, huh?
Right.
In our book, The Game of God, Recovering Your True Identity, we talk about the survival dynamic. And we define survival as the effort of a specific form to maintain its existent structural integrity. Everything in the universe, in the physical, observable universe, is trying to maintain itself through time. It's trying to survive unchanged through time. And there's a reason for that. Because survival correctly equates change with death of the existent. The person who started this sentence that I'm about to finish eventually is dead. There's been a trillion changes in this ego-encapsulated meat suit over here. And the chances of this elaborate unit ever being reconfigured exactly the same are zero, according to our theory. Unless in the future there's some sort of time machine where you could come back and re-experience this moment. God knows why, but we're counting for taste. So the truth is, in this universe, two of the known dynamic forces, I can't remember which, the interactional forces, gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear force, two of those things are trying to hold itself, everything is trying to uses those to hold itself together through time. The other two are trying to pull it apart. So it's almost like a delicate balancing act between the forces of change and the forces of resistance to change. And the act, coincidentally, is so incredibly, exquisitely delicate that we wake up and look in the mirror every morning and, yep, it still looks like us, you know. And where'd you pick it up from there?
Oh, yeah. So what I think you're telling us, and what sounds like to
Please
me,
interpret.
is that life and death are two opposite, in this dualistic universe. The life and death are opposing forces that are necessary, both necessary to have the universe as we know it. I think of the Hindu gods. I mean, isn't Shiva the god? Destroyer. And I love that about the Hindu pantheon, is that they include a destroyer as part of their divine creation of the universe, that the creation requires destruction. They go hand in hand. In our Judeo-Christian philosophy, God creates the world. But where's the destruction of the, I guess that's at the end.
Beings come out.
Or that's Revelation, right? But to have that concept of the creation and destruction being complementary, not contradictory impulses, I think that's very satisfying. And I think that's what you're saying here, that without change, without death of the present configuration, it would not be the universe that we know. It would be a very boring universe, actually, if everything stayed the same. And it's ironic because that seems to be most of our goal in life, is to find something that works for us and then keep it that way forever. To find that place. We think the place of happiness is some place of rest.
You don't want to be shipwrecked on some island in French Polynesia before the arrival of Whitey.
That's right.
In which the island is populated by beautiful virgins who escaped the human sacrifice. And they're they're delighted to see a man wash up on shore. But
the point is that we think that
that sounds kind
if
of Muslim, doesn't it?
yeah, that's right. That's interesting.
I should have been a martyr.
So we think that if we find that place of deathlessness, of changelessness, then we will find happiness.
See Christian heaven.
That's right. And so we have this incredibly negative attitude towards death because we see it as the end. We see it as the termination. We see it, as I said, as the opposite of creation.
And yet, if what I just said is true, we're dying. We have died billions and trillions of times across any two consecutive measurable units of time.
Right.
We have failed to maintain structural integrity. We're dying every second from the moment you're born. It's a cliche. You start dying.
Yeah. Arthur once talked about writing a song called Life is a Terminal Disease because there is only one end to it, it seems like.
And it's not pretty.
But see, that's the thing. We think of death that way. We think of death as this horrible, horrible thing that's going to happen to us. And maybe it's because our perspective on who we are and what life is completely inaccurate.
Yeah, that's right, Miss Optimistic, Miss Helper. Yeah, sure. I was 19 years old and lived in San Francisco and had boundless energy and could walk up and down the hills and bop around and go party all night and bounce out of bed at noon or 1 o'clock the next night. No hangover. Sure, yeah. And when you get old, you just rot, basically. We have these medications now that keep the corpse alive and walking around. Dead man walking. Sure, it looks really good, and then you choke on your own vomit in a nursing home.
Oh, boy. See why we kind of resisted doing this show.
Yeah, I'm glad we did this show. Yeah, I think it's much, it definitely seems to be trending. And when you die, if they don't get you in the ground pretty quick, oh, my God.
But
it looks real good.
But what I said was maybe that's a fundamental misunderstanding of who we are.
I hope so.
And what the universe is all about. That that's all because of the identification with, this meat suit. That this is who I am. And so when the meat suit dies, that means I've disappeared.
Like those stockbrokers who jumped out of the 44th floor on Black Friday.
Right.
Because they were their fortune. When they lost their fortune, there was no point in living.
Right. So, and we just went to a funeral a few weeks ago. And
classic Southern funeral, lying in state, open casket. I hate that word. Coffin.
Yeah.
But she looked good. And she had good bone structure, so the makeup wasn't too grotesque.
And she died basically peacefully in her sleep, you could say. So whatever. I mean, I don't know how peaceful. I mean, that's the thing. How peaceful is any death? I mean, it maybe looks like it on the surface, but what's happening in there in the consciousness? How aware are you of this awesome transition?
National Lampoon magazine. They had a doctor said, "Oh, that'll be the phone," and he's answering the phone, and he's totally making brutally sarcastic remarks to the person on the other end, and he says, "Dying, yes, it's just like going to sleep," and he's thinking, "Only it hurts like a son of a bitch."
Yeah. Well, and then I was looking through our telephone book just the other day, and in our personal one, and I was like, "Oh, he's dead. Oh, she's dead." And that's kind of how it gets when you start getting older. It's an interesting process. It's like more and more of the people are dead, and death doesn't seem quite so. I mean, when you were talking about when you were 19, death is a very abstract thing. You don't really think about it much. It's not going to happen to me. But as you get older, you certainly become more familiar with it because people are dead. But it seems
you start gloating on it. You start, I survived.
Is that what?
I've done a bit of that. Mostly it's, God, why me? Why am I left on this killing floor? It's my karma.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to read the Florida Times-Union every day, and the first thing she'd turn to is the obituaries to see if there was anyone that she knew who had taken the big trip. Because I think it becomes like when another one of my victims was pregnant, you become aware of. I never noticed pregnant women, but when she was pregnant, suddenly when you have a personal involvement in pregnancy, Suddenly, just pregnant women started popping out of the landscape, and you notice them. Then when it was all over, they kind of disappeared back into the background. But I think it's like that when you get older, death becomes increasingly part of your awareness. I wanted to get back to kind of like the mechanics of this, though.
Okay.
Because the one thing I thought about, I didn't want to rehearse what I was going to say, but this did cross my mind, that I like absolutes. I like rules that apply to everyone, everywhere, every time, no exceptions. Because in my experience, my mind, which is basically the part I have trouble with, it's called the ego. The ego is like a rat that's always looking for a hole it can escape out of. It doesn't like absolutes. It likes to think, I'm different, or these rules don't apply to me, or I was born in another planet. It's a rat is a good analogy. A sneaking, filthy rodent that does a lot of destruction in the dark. In any case, that was so vivid, I kind of seem to have lost my train of thought. Not hard to do for Arthur. There are, in terms of absolutes, I suggest that there is the infinite and there is the finite. The infinite is without boundary. It's without borders. It's without limits. It is free of all constraint. It is infinite. It's virtually impossible for us to even get our minds around it. In the finite realm, there's nothing but boundaries. That's what makes us finite. There's somebody, and here's somebody over here, and there's this, and there's that. And what all that is, these separate things, this dualistic always implies too, this myriad of forms, what every single one of them are trying to do is survive unchanged through time. The goal of survival is immortality. And you know what that is? That's being the way you are forever. That's really what immortality is. It's what I always found so nightmarish about the Christian idea of heaven. Imagine being who you are forever. What are we here, 70, 80 years? I'm already getting tired of the show. I've seen this movie already. Seen the reruns, countless reruns. And I want to go to a place and be me for 10 trillion, billion, trillion, billion, trillion years, and I'm still me, and it's never going to end. Hallelujah! Thank you! Praise! That's it? Shoot me, please. Maybe hell has got more variety. I don't know. That would get boring too. Punch me out, crush my testicles. Okay, seen that, done that. Patty melted again today. We just did that a few thousand years ago. What are you? Relativity makes the game go round. Makes dynamics. Like music. It'd be like singing a song like, I love you, baby, I love you, baby, I love you, baby, I love you, baby. I can't even be this devoid of dynamics.
Right.
It's what I'm talking about. It's, I love you, baby, but you broke my heart. I love you, baby, but you really suck. But, it's like life is up and down and in between. But it's always changing and we're always dying. So in infinity, there ain't no change because it's just infinite, whatever it is, the truth, light, whatever. But here in the universe of dualism, there is black and white, night and day, hate and love, jealousy and trust, crime and war and peace and striving and efforting and winning and losing. And all this involve change. I think I'm kind of all over the road. I kind of had a glimpse of it. I should have really rehearsed it because it was a neat thought of infinite, finite. The realm of the finite is nothing but change / death. Because survival's right. When you change, you're dead to what you were. Our work says the only thing that survives unchanged through time, that can remain substantially exactly the way it is forever, which is a long, long time, is human bullshit or beliefs or non-physical surviving thought forms. Superstitions, customs, traditions, they're ideas, they're concepts, and they don't have any physical properties. They're mental constructs. And these are immune to the interactional forces of change, and they can go for generations passed down. All Jews are money grabbers. The only good Bosnian is a dead Bosnian.
Okay. So, but to stick with the idea of death, so you're saying that because
rammed
if
together
you're
here.
finite, you're going to die. So get over it. That kind of seems
Yeah.
like maybe the way I would summarize what you just said, which is, I mean, it would be a boring place if we didn't have death.
Yeah, but I don't really mean that as comfort, because the truth is everything about death, just like that grisly scenario I ran through earlier,
Yeah.
choking on your own juices in a nursing home. And I mean, it doesn't look good. As a matter of fact, it's like that line from on Golden Pond when he had his heart attack on the
Yeah.
porch and dropped the dishes. And she said, she's comforting him, and he's gets him some water, and he's coming back around, and she said, I saw, Catherine Hepburn said, I saw you in your blue suit down at Perkins Funeral Home. And I can't remember the character's name. Henry Fonda said, how did I look? She said, not good.
Well, I cried at the funeral, and I cried for a few reasons. One was that the children of this person who died, I could feel their sorrow, and I could, and a lot of that sorrow had to do with incompletions of life. That all the things they hadn't said, all the things they had said and wished they hadn't, all the things they hadn't done for her, and so that was sad.
On top of just the loss. I mean, that's
Yeah.
done. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
But you can't ever call them up again. You can't say the things, and you can't have any more relationship with them. But I also cried about just the awesome mystery of existence that for a time we're here and then something happens and that person just, as a matter of fact, we had a cat that lived with us for 15 years and she had kidney failure, and so we had her euthanized. And I was looking in her eyes as the drugs took effect. And 1 second, she was there looking at me. And the next second, it was gone. And it was incredible how it just, this real, it seems very real, something there. And then it's gone. And so what is that, and where does it go, and is it really real, or is it some biochemical disturbance in the brain that's
that's
interrupted?
what they say love is.
Right, we just read that, and what I was thinking while you were talking is that one of the things that we look at when archaeologists look back in the record is when people started burying their loved ones, or people in their tribe, that it's the fact of burial that really we point to that and say these people are really human, because
I wonder about that. It's not just the burial, because you could understand them doing that just to hold the smell down. Really?
Yeah, well,
it's
true.
the burying of artifacts
Right.
with the
the
body.
symbolic burial, right?
Ritual, if you will.
Ritualistics, right? I guess that's what I mean.
Well, the artifacts, it's like they're giving them something. That
Right.
meant something.
Right.
That implied an attempt to come to grips with the awesome mystery of, what are we doing? Who are we? What are we doing here? Some basic, the deepest foundations of religion and philosophy that we're going to give them something beautiful to take with them on their journey.
And maybe the death is what provokes us to ask those questions more than anything else, because at death, it's like, what's the purpose? What is the purpose of all those years of striving, of effort, of struggle, of heartbreak, of pain, of, just to mention the bad stuff?
Please.
What's the point? If you're just going to go through these years and then die, and there's nothing afterwards. That whatever it was just completely disappears. Why bother? Why make any sacrifices? Why not just have the best time you can while you're alive? And if if there's nothing else. So so to me, that's what death is, the propelling, maybe the consciousness of our death, you could say, is also what makes us human. What other creature is aware that there is an end to their life during their life? This is maybe one of the propelling forces towards self-awareness is trying to figure out what it all means because we're going to die. And what does it mean? I don't know.
Yes, you do. You wrote a book on the subject. It's called The Game of God, Recovering Your True Identity, which we think offers a very plausible, logical reason for why we go through this roller coaster ride called life. It's, in a nutshell, it's that the infinite is a state without limitation, without boundary, without border, without constraint. The only conceivable limitation to being absolutely unlimited is the inability to experience limitation. If you're all-knowing, how could you ever learn anything? How could you have the experience of learning and discovery? If you're all-powerful, how could you have any experience of weakness or effort or struggle or overcoming? If you're eternal, how could you ever experience change? If you're immortal, how could you ever experience fear of death and actual death? So the point is that any limitation of the absolutely unlimited, if there's anything the absolutely unlimited cannot do, that's a limitation, and that makes it limited. It's limited after all, and that's a gross contradiction. Can't have that. So we say that this thing called God that people talk about has neatly solved the riddle. Could God create a boulder too heavy for God to lift? Yeah, the answer is yes, but not as God. The only way the absolutely unlimited can have a full-bore experience of limitation and give itself a hernia trying to lift that boulder is during the experience of limitation. It's got to forget that it is God. It has to forget that it's absolutely unlimited. It has to forget its true identity. And forgetting who you are is called amnesia. And from this, we theorize the universe is the infinite in a self-induced state of amnesia. I hesitate on that because we no longer say self-induced. It's in an amnesic state. To be absolutely unlimited, the only way God can have it all can be God and a brilliant imitation of not God is through what I just described, an amnesic state. You forget yourself, you lose yourself in an evolving universe, and the whole process is one of evolution/regaining of true identity, regaining awareness, regaining consciousness. And that's the game of life. It's not really a game at all. It is the way the infinite can express itself in the finite. And we posit there are three purposes of the universe. The first purpose allows the unlimited to experience limitation. Second purpose is for limitation to experience the unlimited. From burying a carved piece of bone with your mate or the chief, the bracelets and the shells with the chief's body 200,000 years ago, to St. Peter's Basilica, to Plato and Socrates. It's the intuiting of something beyond the physical, beyond the obvious, an underlying purpose that we've sought for hundreds of thousands of years, ever since we began to have the ability to invent and question and reason. So that's what that is, the limited experiencing the unlimited, and steady progression, hopefully. And the third, and I just kind of got this recently, it allows the unlimited to experience the unlimited to experience itself. It's like the only way, maybe, that God can have like an objective perspective of itself is to lose itself in the universe, and then on the return journey, as it's coming back, as it's regaining awareness, that part of the limited experiencing the unlimited, it's like it almost comes into relationship with itself and starts to actually see itself for what it is and appreciate itself for what it is. In a real sense, it occurred to me recently that the third purpose, the unlimited experience, the unlimited, that the entire amnesiac episode called the physical universe is actually the self-awareness of God. That's how God can be aware of itself. Now that makes a lot more sense than, we're spitting a little clay here and we'll make me up a man. And then I'm going to take a rib out and make a woman. I'm going to give them one lock as they're walking and hanging with me every day and having a good time. I'm God Almighty after all. And I give them one little rule and they break it immediately. And then they all start reproducing and sinning. So I'd have to drown the whole damn bunch. But okay, I'll let one family survive. Sure enough, they start screwing up, it lasts for 3, 4, 6,000 years or whatever. And the concentration camps and all those. And I'm going to come back with fire and just toast them all next time, except for the handful that know the right password. Is that really?
So how does the fact that I'm going to die fit into all of that? How does the fact that I exist and then I'm not going to exist fit into the fact that the universe is the self-awareness of God?
It's a grand illusion.
So you're saying that my life and my death are illusions, that they don't really exist?
Absolutely. How could they? The only thing God cannot be, according to our thinking, the only thing God cannot do is to not exist. The truth, the light shines in the darkness and the darkness will not overcome it. You know why? Because the light is the truth and the darkness is an illusion. We have photographic evidence of light that's been moving at 186,000 miles a second. That's 7 times around the equator in 1 second. So that's been moving at that speed toward us for 13,000 million years. That's how big it is. But it overcomes. The light made it here. So if it's all God in disguise, if it's all an amnesiac illusion, what the Upanishads, what the Hindus have been saying for thousands of years, that it's the play of God, it's Maya, it's illusion, it's not really real. It's damn sure convincingly real. I thought I was going to die once and it scared the crap out of me. I was so frightened I lost my identity.
So
it's very convincing,
right.
but it's no less an illusion. And so I guess it depends on how deep you're. Well, what do they have, that book of people who had near-death experiences? They did a study, psychological study, and the people who had reported near-death experiences, they found out when they did the psychological battery of tests that Christians, New Agers, atheists, agnostics, all of those people had a good, healthy fear of death. The only people who had a marked reduction in that fear were people who had near-death experiences, that had a taste of it. They'd seen the other side. They knew that when the bullshit of life is over and you draw your last breath and you struggle and your body's fighting and everything, and then, oh, wow. Man, I hope it's, oh, wow. I hope it is the orgasm of a lifetime. Or I could use other analogies, but I won't. Well, giving birth after being pregnant for 70 years.
What you just said made me wonder how much of the reason for the existence of a lot of religions. I can't help it. It's a stool, okay? I can't not move.
So piercing.
The whole reason for the existence of religions is the fear of death. That religions exist maybe completely because of our fear of death and our wanting to explain it, wanting to explain away why we live and then not live, and what happens to us after we live. And we need the comfort of not just when somebody we know dies, but we need the comfort of what will happen when I die, because we all think, like Snoopy memorably said, I'm to me to die. It's impossible to imagine the universe existing without me in it, because my whole worldview has me as the center. I mean, even though that sounds like a real toddler point of view, even still, when I look around, I see from this point of view. Right now, if I'm trying to hold the reality of of a huge city in India and all of that life that's happening right there now, along with this quiet room that I happen to be sitting in, and try to make that as real, all those lives as real as my life. It's very hard. It's very abstract.
And get your mind around the fact that that city's been there for 2,000 years.
Right. So that's, the way we think about our lives. Our lives are so important that the universe revolves around my life. So how can it continue after I die? How can it even have existed before I was born? And that's one of the interesting things about going to a cemetery is going there and just really start realizing that all these people that are just gravestones now, all these people were real people with real lives that had jobs, had children, worked, struggled, crises, all the dramas of life.
Falling in love, childhood play, all of it.
All of those
Learning,
things.
school.
And then they died. And all of those lives were just as real as my life. And so we need some way to explain it, and that's what religion is about. Religion is a way to explain that fact to us and to explain not only my life and my death, but how the universe can go on and I still exist. That I will not stop existing at my death. And I didn't begin existence at my birth even. That's another thing that the Christian religion covers, is you were a soul before you were born. That I asked a minister, a fundamentalist minister once, well, so I don't really understand it. If the universe was created at one time, then that means all the souls that'll ever exist had to have been created at that time of the universe's creation. So otherwise, God would be creating new souls all the time as they're being born. So that means my soul was, whenever the universe was created, my soul was created back then at that same time. And I could see he'd never thought of this before, and it really bothered him. He wasn't quite sure how to answer me because it was either, because it leads right into predestination, which I don't want to go there. But the point I'm trying to make here is that so much of our way of thinking and our religions are built around a real egocentric thing, which is I want to keep existing forever. I don't want to stop. So I want a philosophy or a theology that allows my life to continue. And one of the things, I've mentioned this before, that I find so comforting about our philosophy is that it covers that. I feel like I will exist, but maybe not in any way that I can conceive of right now. It may not be in this Katie Brugger essence, but if the whole universe is God and there is nothing but God, then there's no place to go. Death seems like a falling into oblivion, a falling into an abyss of nothingness. And my core belief in my philosophy is there is no such thing as nothingness. There's only the appearance of nothingness. So that really existential fear of going into nothingness cannot be true. So that's the comfort I take.
It's all infinity. It's all infinite.
Right.
And we say infinite consciousness, not infinite oblivion. Infinite awareness. And that's home base. And it's one of the reasons, a couple of things. If that underlies everything, that's maybe the best, most succinct argument for why you survive death, because consciousness is all there is. You're trapped in a limited form of consciousness right now. So when your physical body dies, that spark in the eye, that thing, electromagnetic kiss my ass, it's the life force. It's the punchline. It's what life is. And it's not defined under a microscope. They can tell when it's absent because the cells start to break down and putrefaction begins. But they don't know what it is. I guarantee you they don't know what it is. Our scientific gods. However, the reason I'm persuaded toward reincarnation, we're really going to get into some strange waters here, is that I don't believe you go through this veil of tears, this killing floor, and go straight back to home base. And I find that really offensive. I think that the so-called soul, which is not God consciousness, that's not the infinite essence of what everything is. It's a transitory state of awareness that is configured like an M&M. I'm Arthur. I'll never be Arthur again in the universe. Thank God. Had a good time, but God. But the thin candy shell is the essence of me with all the karma, all the state of awareness, basically, that I've managed to achieve thus far. But that's still a very limited consciousness. And what that's holding in is the rich chocolate center, maybe with a big almond. Let's just make it all chocolate, not a big nut man. A rich chocolate center of infinite consciousness. And what happens is right out of Groundhog Day, man, when you die and you've been a half-assed believer, or you've got whatever, you've gotten as far as you've gotten, you're a cynical atheist, you subscribe to the Skeptic Monthly, you delight in making all your metaphysical friends miserable with all your brutal critiques of their faith. And you get there and you go, holy shit. You know, personally, I hope I'm there, because I'm going to have a goddamn pitchfork and wearing a red sateen suit with a barbed tail and cloven hoof Adidas. And I'm going to make you think your ass is toast forever. The Christian's right there. Anyway, I digress. So the idea is that you're going to, until you're able to shed a sufficient layer of your thin candy ass shell of ego domination, till you pay the dues and do the work, you're going to come right back where you left off. I don't know how it works, but you're not going to Godhead. You're not going to dissolve into white light by living out a half-assed life when, you know, the saints who've given up everything and learned service and learned love and learned true peace, you're not going to go park your ass next to them. They're the ones that are going on to the next level of consciousness. And there are many mansions. I imagine I would hope there are innumerable levels of consciousness going back to home base. When the game's over, you probably do the same. Probably. What else is there to do?
Well, that's what makes sense to me. I mean, I don't really care so much whether it's reincarnation or not. But it seems when I've heard the different ideas about how the universe would be structured, it seems to make sense, because if what we say is true, that the universe is unlimited experiencing limitation, you're going to want to set it up so you have all sorts of as many variations on that limitation as possible. And one of the things you'd want to have is, I mean, as joyful as it is learning in our own lives and growing as we get older, well, that would just add another layer of complexity that you would learn from lifetimes and lifetimes, and you would, progress further than we seem to be able to in one of our lifetimes. There's only so much we can get, but it could be. I'm not attached to that idea. It could be something completely different. What's important to me is that there is only God and there is nowhere to go. And so whatever happens at death, it's not a bad. Ultimately, it's not a bad thing, because there is only God. There's no way to lose at this game, because somehow, if there is nothing but God, if this is God here trapped in the illusion of not Godness, well, that's all death is just more of the illusion of not Godness.
I wonder if there's any way we could drop the goddamn God. I'm sick of using that word. That word is like love. It has been so maligned. Couldn't we say the infinite, the one, the infinite one? Supreme being is preferable to God. And it sounds like that Jehovah character who's a royal screw-up, in our opinion. I mean, of course, you read the Old Testament like it was supposed to be read, which is a teaching parable. But even then, it's really offensive. Remember, Gandhi was appalled when he read it, because he loved the Gospels, loved what Jesus had to say. Mm-hmm. But when he read God saying, go out and sow salt in their fields and chop their babies up into pieces, huh? What kind of God have you got? primitive from burying artifacts with your dead to St. Peter's, and believe me, babies, that ain't home base either.
Well, I think one of the reasons we're afraid of death is because it closes off tomorrow. We're always like Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. O'Hara. That's
Scarlett
something else. That tomorrow's another day. That we always have tomorrow to make up for our failings of today. We always have tomorrow to make up a fight that we had today. We always have tomorrow to tell someone we love them. And so we always put off till tomorrow the things that we should do today because we're lazy, or it's too hard, or all these reasons we have. And that's what death does. Death is that there is no tomorrow. And so we're afraid of, because we live our lives so incompletely, we know that when we die, there'll be all these things that we had left undone. And that's scary, because that's what brings the pain in life. That's what, that brought the tears at the funeral was the, she didn't really know I loved her. Even if I told her I loved her, she didn't really know it, because it's so hard to communicate that, to really let somebody know how you feel. And
we have an excellent refutation for that nonsense too, because it is nonsense. We literally do the best we can.
Yeah.
Especially given the fact that we're all completely insane. That's our second book. We Are All Innocent by Reason of Insanity, a work in progress.
Yeah. But
the mechanics of compassion, to show compassion for somebody and yourself, you got to realize you could not help it. I don't give a damn how much you knew the right thing to do was, what you should have done and didn't do, or what you did and you knew you shouldn't have. Tough. You couldn't help it. There were psychological equivalents of devil and angel present at any given moment, and when the devil is the upper hand, that's where you're going to jump, Jack. And if the angel is uppermost, you're going to do the right thing. But there's no, God.
But I would just say, part of being limited creatures, because then, my mind wants to say, oh, so the moral of the story is live your life as if it's your last day. I mean, how many times have you heard that? And
today is the first day of the rest of your life.
Or it's the last day of the whatever. And that's just recipe for disaster, because we are limited. And that's really, for me, what the message of We're All Innocent by Reason of Insanity is that we're limited creatures. We're insane creatures. We confuse our mind-generated reality with actual reality all the time. And when you're insane, when you're a limited creature, you're going to make mistakes. You are going to put stuff off. You are going to say, I'll do it tomorrow.
Seriously. People that obsess about death tend to die early.
That's right. So these things, this will happen, and that is part of it. And to beat ourselves up for it and to feel regret is just another aspect of our insanity. Because it's going to happen. I mean,
because we don't realize we're insane.
Yeah.
If you realize you were insane, you could have some humility. You could realize, man, I got problems. I can't enter a marathon because I wear leg braces. I'm crippled. So, that's being aware of your limitations. Well, if you realize the biggest limitation that we all have, where we're really crippled, is between our ears. Because we think we know all there is worth knowing. And you know what? We don't know jack shit. That's the truth. We don't know anything, absolutely. And we damn sure don't know what's on the other side of the curtain of death.
Yeah.
For a very good reason, I think. Because it would really screw the game up. If I get you another still, would you say
no.
that?
No.
Oh, no, all right. There will be a new still here
next
week.
Somebody's got a real obsession with certain things.
It's a squeaky, high-pitched squeak. Person. It's driving me nuts.
So I think you were saying that about
if we knew that we were going to survive death, it would screw life up big time. We would not play life. We wouldn't take life seriously at all. Virtually, compared to what we have now, we'd have challenges, but we wouldn't take it seriously. We wouldn't play it with the fervor and the intensity and charge, you know,
You only have one life to live.
one life to live, you know, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
true.
that's why the veil of death is very, very, very impenetrable. Nobody sent a postcard back. Even though I really believe in a few hundred years, if the human race doesn't extinct itself, that we're basically going to achieve physical immortality. I don't know about immortal, that's a big word. But let's say the lifespan is going to be measured in hundreds of years. And we'll basically beat physical death. It might be necessary if we're going to go explore the universe. But we're not going to make it. But in terms of worrying about it, I certainly feel, I'll be 65 in about 6 weeks. And man, definitely a process, this aging business. Definitely feel it. There's a part of it that's kind of luxurious. A lot of it has to do with, I think, just not really giving a damn anymore. I really don't care. I'm not going to struggle and bust my ass anymore. We're doing the show for a few more weeks until our 6-month agreement is up with, I almost said MTV, URTV, or the Western Carolina Community Media Center. I said it.
No, you missed it. You left out the North Carolina.
Western North Carolina. No, that's it. So I don't know. I just know it's kind of a luxurious settling in, feeling like, okay, I think maybe the tough part's over. This is downhill from here. I'll tell you one thing, if I have any help in the matter, any say in the matter, I will not go into a nursing home. I will not go into a hospital back ward. I'll be like our buddy, what's his name? The writer, Hunter Thompson, on the wall of his place in Aspen where he shot himself. Before he shot himself, he had a big sign saying, "Do not call 911. This means you." I'd like to think that I have the cojones to take matters into my own hands when the time is right.
I admire people that are willing to do
Well,
that.
talk's cheap, too.
Yeah,
We'll see if
I
have
know,
the
but I
cojones.
hope I feel the same way. I hope that I have the guts to kill myself if I am faced with mental. I can't imagine living in a nursing home and not even knowing who I am or who people that visit me, or if I even had anybody to visit me. That's a joke. But not knowing what's going on. I mean,
Sam.
who wants to live like that? That's not living, as far as I'm concerned. So I hope if I really see that is in my near future.
Everybody says that, of course. Not me.
No, I
A lot of
disagree.
people do.
No.
A lot of them will, like I said, talk's cheap. We'll see how it goes.
But so I think we might as well talk about suicide here. We're talking about death. I don't have a blanket condemning of suicide. I don't think it's always a bad thing.
Always. I think if it weren't for suicide, we'd really be in a right bloody mess. If you didn't know deep down in your soul that if things got horrible enough, you could pull your own plug, I think we'd go completely, really operationally bouncing off the wall nuts.
Well, that's an interesting contradiction, since on the surface we all fear death, and you're saying that at the same time, if we didn't know we could prompt our own death, we'd go screaming crazy.
Yeah. There would be no way out. It's like heaven. Imagine being trapped in heaven for eternity. Oh
Well, don't the
God.
psychologists say we are secretly in love with death? That's can't think of the name of it, but right now, but
Death wish.
the death wish, yeah.
I think I must have had that as a teenager. Because a teenager, you're in the years where it's like, God, you see the conveyor belt moving to the grave, where you have to leave the nest and go to work for the rest of your life and just play the game. And I maybe that's why, in my generation in the South, a lot of kids got killed in car wrecks, because you are taking wild risks. I mean, my first speeding ticket, I got my license when I was 16. And a few months later, I was clocked at 95 on a back road in North Florida coming back from the beach in a 1960 Pontiac Bonneville, new Bonneville.
Nude Bonneville?
New Bonneville, and huge V8 engine. And I had this speedometer was flat at 120, which is buried. God knows how fast I was going. And when I saw the lights come out of that side road, I knew it was smoky. So I was slowing down for a half a mile, and he clocked me at 95. So I had 5 kids in the car. Been curtains for everybody if I'd lost it.
Yeah, but maybe
you
it's,
do stuff like
right.
that when you're young, and maybe what's underneath that is not just wild and crazy youth, because you really are kind of, maybe this is my chance to get out of here before I have to face a life of dung eating like my parents.
Okay, that's possible. I was thinking
They
maybe
were
it's
just
more
throwing
like to really be alive, it requires you to be to acknowledge the chance of death, to be like right there on the razor's edge. And that's the problem with adult life, is because it's playing it safe. It's removing the dangers. And so you're never really alive. If you're never risking death, you're not really risking life either. You're just sort of in this comatose state somewhere in the middle.
Or perhaps the answer is somewhere in between. Just tossing out theories here.
Yeah.
No, the truth is about death, who the hell knows? Who knows? I don't know, but I think I'm going to find out. I think
Yeah.
we're all going to find
That's
out.
for sure. It's something we will all experience.
So the Christians would say, you better get right with Jesus, because if you don't, and you're wrong,
That's
mister,
right.
you're going to wake up with a pitchfork up your ass forever.
Well, I'm sure that convinces a lot of people. I mean, what's
So
the point?
sad, too. What kind of God would lay that on
Yeah.
you? Think about it. Just a
Right.
tiny bit.
Right.
What kind of monster are you worshiping?
Yeah. You have this little short lifespan. I mean, some people only live 5 years, and in that 5 years, if you don't do the right thing, you're going to be condemned to eternity,
That's right. God
never-ending torment.
God wants you to love him of your free will. So he sends Tony Soprano over your door with a baseball bat. You know what? You get right with God, I'm going to beat the hell out of you for eternity. Kiss my ass, God. Take your heaven and put it where the sun don't shine.
Well, that's-
you can make me squeal and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go on TV and say those terrible things about you, Lord. Please stop with a hot poker. Stop prepping me just for a moment, please, for the right to misery for eternity. Please stop. But I would never love you. You could break me in a second. I'm a great coward. You can make me crawl and wallow in abject weaselness. But I would never love you, ever.
See the movie.
Fortunately, that God is a complete ancient superstition made up by a bunch of nutcases.
But if you'd like to see a film that really makes the point Arthur just made, really powerfully and movingly, see, it's called The Rapture. And it was made maybe sometime in the early 90s. And it really, it asks, well, it puts a woman in the position of really questioning what kind of God would create a universe where you have to accept some insane beliefs to go to heaven. And is it really worth it? And she chooses not.
It's
And
a real pity, too. Because, I'm sorry.
But it's quite a film.
It is. The Rapture. Available on Netflix. It's a pity, too, because there's a lot of beautiful stuff in the teachings of Jesus. I mean, there's core wisdom there. It all comes down to love, which most Christians don't want to really, really get the ramifications of really loving your enemy. So they turn blind eyes to appalling things like capital punishment and war. Anybody who calls himself a Christian and puts on a military uniform, you are kidding yourself. Anyway, enough of that.
Well,
Let's
I
not
was
get
just
into
thinking,
that. We've talked
yeah,
about religion in the past.
Yeah, we just did our wills this week, and
Speaking of which.
which has been a very interesting process. We have put it off, and because it's partly because I don't have any children, and so it's kind of like, well, who do I want to leave, whatever's left of my remains, to? I mean, not my physical remains, but my stuff, but then...
That's what she put in her will. What to do with my stuff.
No, it was called disposal of my stuff.
Oh, disposal of my stuff.
But, we've done it. We did it with Arthur's parents. And one of the motivating factors for me is that it's really there's a lot of work to do to clean up somebody's life.
Yeah.
And it's the more organized you can be. And if you don't have a will, no matter what your age, I really strongly recommend that you go out and do it, because it's really hard cleaning up after somebody else's
What was
life.
that book you found? That's what ours is. It's legal. You just go down to the bank or something, get
Oh,
a
yeah,
witness,
it's
get a
no
couple
big
of witnesses.
deal. You just have to have a witness.
Well,
And you can
what
write
was
it
the name
in,
of the book that you got that form from? You remember?
I don't know. It was a book
Go to
from
the
the library.
library,
Yeah, writing your own will. And it's but it really it makes you really think about it and take it seriously, that one day it will happen. I will not be here. And so how, and I really want to leave my life, to leave as few problems for somebody to come along after me and clean up my remains, the things I've left behind. I think about it sometimes. I think about, oh my God, what if I got in an accident and people came in my house and they looked around and they looked at like my little piles of, like by my bedside table, or what would they think about me from the stuff that's there and how it's arranged?
Gives a rat's ass. When I was going to, the reason I laughed and you said someday I won't be here, and it was kind of like, it was kind of a
There's
moment.
melancholy.
Yeah, a little
edge to it.
melancholy there. And I thought, when we get to the other side, man, especially if we survive death, first thing we're going to say is, holy shit, I just died and I'm still here.
Yeah.
If there's any justice at all, we're going to have a world-class R&R period that you get to complete your last life with the point out, just to cut to the chase, is we're going to laugh our asses off at moments like, someday I won't be here anymore. Not that you said it like that, but someday I won't
probably
be here.
did.
And say, thank God you're not going to be there anymore. It's a killing floor. It's a planetary insane asylum. When you get to the other side, when you get up here with us, like a Bardo, like a nonlinear editing system where you get to meet everybody that was in your last life, maybe hang out, complete those questions you wanted to know, those burning questions, the incompletions, and you'll get to complete your life as whoever you were. And then, after a time of drinking Mai Tais on the beach, just drink all you want. You just get that perfect first couple of drinks high, but you want to go, just all that great stuff. Defending your life is kind of a cute variation of that. You will either be ready to move on to the next level or realize you're carrying too much karmic baggage. Your little candy shell is just still too thick, and you got to go back and work on melting a little bit more.
Well, sometimes I think it's coffee. A cup of coffee is going to bring me back.
I'll probably come back for the sex.
Whatever it takes.
1 minute, 45-second warning.
So it's the death of our show. The death of the show is approaching.
I'm sure one thing is going to die, this damn stool. I mean, it's either going to be fixed with a massive dose of WD-40 or it's going to the landfill. I promise you that.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Well, maybe next time we'll be playing some songs. That's kind of what we're thinking of.
Maybe we'll be nude.
Maybe we won't have a show at all.
Maybe we won't have a show. Maybe we'll just quit out of sheer boredom, talking to ourselves.
Or maybe we'll do something completely different. That's where we're thinking about it.
That's right.
You never know. But that's what the change is all about. Is if it weren't for change, how boring it would be. So.
And as for death, farther along, we'll know all about it. Farther along, we'll understand why. Cheer up, my brothers and sisters. Live in the sunshine. We'll understand it all by and by.
See you again.